everyone, Lisa here from Down to Earth Gardening, and today's video is on starting tomatoes from seed. So I'm starting mine a little bit early here for the purposes of showing all you folks just the basics of starting seeds. I haven't done this in quite a while, so I actually had to get myself all set up again. And I thought it would be fun just to show you the process, what I purchased, and how I'm going to get these little babies going. So tomatoes like it hot. So here in my zone, which is zone 6A, we don't usually put our nursery plants out until the end of May. My mom always used Memorial Day as a rule of thumb because it's safe to say that day or that time is going to be warm enough. The soil's going to be warm enough, so tomatoes like it hot. So you really do want to wait to put them out in the ground until the ground is the soil is consistently in the 50s. So with that said, here in my zone, what you want to do is you want to count back about 6 or 8 weeks is ideal and start your tomatoes from seed. So I'm starting them a little early just for the sake of showing you all how to get them going. And mine may turn out to be a little bit leggy, so that's the disadvantage of starting them too early. But here, April 1st up into mid-April is really ideal. So I'm going to go through the materials here, what I have to set myself up so you can follow along at home. And of course, the first thing is the seeds. And you all know how much I love my seeds and the potential that they have. I ordered mine from John Sheepers this year, and they have a really good selection. They have a lot of heirloom tomatoes that I really liked. So I'm just going to show you my tomato seed fan here. So I think the only thing I'm missing out of the group are probably some plum tomatoes. So I have a lot of cherries, different cherries, and then some bigger tomatoes, which is really mostly what we eat. But if you make a lot of tomato sauce, you might want to go ahead and get some plum tomatoes. So tomato seeds, and then I have some labels because you do want to label them as you're setting up your seeds. So just these here, and I started making them out, and I do like to put the date. And then I have my trays. So for today, this is what I have for a setup here. I have the cells that are in the 4 packs, but I would actually prefer for this project to have the 6 packs, but this is what I had on hand. And I do want to have a tray to hold them in for watering purposes. And that really helps them, water. It's like a self-watering system. But also, when you have your trays on a rack, which I will talk about this as well, and you have your lights set up, you really don't want your trays leaking when you water them because we have all these lights that are staggered and underneath. They're above and underneath the trays. And then these have the covers. But if you don't have covers, that's totally fine. You can use plastic wrap. So here I also have another kind of cell pack, which I really like because it's clear and I can see what's going on in here. I can see the root growth. And these are a little smaller. And then I have my seed starting soil mix, which is an organic seed starter. And I am going to list the links to all of this stuff in the description if you're interested. And then I purchased this DIY shelf, and it was actually a kit that came with the grow lights. So a little pricey. I think it ran a little more than $200, but it was fairly easy to put together, and I think it's going to be a space saver for me And then, of course, when I'm done with it, I'm probably going to wheel it in the garage and use it for my gardening supplies. So it'll still be in use when I'm not growing some seeds. I also like that it has some wheels on the bottom, because when you're hardening your seeds off, you are going to be rolling them outside. So again, all the links will be in the description. So now we're going to jump right into the fun stuff. We're gonna go step by step on how to get the seeds started here. So first off, it's great to have a nice warm location for the seeds. So like I said, tomatoes like it warm, and they are going to germinate better if they're in a warm location. So you will see a lot about the warming seed mats that you place underneath the cell trays. And that is certainly an option. I know a lot of people do that, but I'm going to just have mine in a warm location, so that's another option. So if you can have them in an area or a room where it's around 70 degrees, then that's really great. I have this room here with a lot of space for projects, and there's a little fireplace back here. So the rack is actually going to be near the fireplace. So, away from any drafts or anything, just, make sure it's in a nice warm location. So I've got the cell trays all set up, and all you're going to do to start is you're going to fill your cells with your seed starting mix. So I'm just going to fill these all up. And yep, I love to make a mess. I'm a gardener, that's what I do. Thankfully, a lot of times it's outside, but in the winter here, we're inside. So I try to do the best I can, but a mess is kind of inevitable. Okay, so we have our tray all prepped here with the seed starting mix. And the next step is you want to moisten the soil. So you don't want it really soggy, just moisten it a little bit to get the seeds going. And one trick that you can do here is for watering the soil, you can use some warm water, because remember I said that the seeds like it warm. So you can mist it all. And if you're misting it, it's really going to need a good misting here. Or you can also just use your little watering can and just give it a little water. Okay. I'm just testing it here. Okay, so pre-moisten the soil. Okay, and next we are going to get our labels out. And again, I do like to have the date on them. So we're going to start with the Indigo Blue Beauty tomato. Here. And I do like to put my tags in first so that I'm not disturbing the seeds. Okay, so now we need the seeds. So many seeds, so little time. Okay. Okay, they're pretty tiny. So now remember when I mentioned that I have the 4-pack cells and I would prefer to have the 6-pack. And the reason is you want the smaller cells for smaller seeds. So seeds actually do like to be close together. They just germinate better. They like the company. So what I'm going to do, because I have the bigger cells, is I'm going to put at least 2 seeds, and I'm going to space them out a little bit here in each cell. So 2, maybe even 3. And like I said, they like their friends to germinate. They actually prefer to be crowded. But the other advantage to that is if they don't all germinate, which they might, then you're sure to have at least 1 per cell. If they do all germinate, then you have the options of just snipping out the ones that aren't as strong and leaving the strongest seedling, or taking them out and moving them to another peat pot even. Because I mean, that's probably what I'll do. I really can't stand the thought of throwing away the valuable seedlings. So 2 or 3 per cell. Now you can just push them down with your finger, or you can take, I have my marker here, typically I use a pencil. You can pre-make the holes, and they only need to be barely covered, so not even 1/4 of an inch deep. So if you want to pre-make a couple of holes, I space them apart a little bit here. So I'm just doing a couple here. Okay, and you can see how tiny they are. Okay, so we have our seeds all tucked in and planted. And then we also have them labeled, which is also really important. And we do have a few different varieties in here, which is going to be a lot of fun. But one thing I do want to mention is I have here, there's 32 cells in this tray. We planted 2 seeds per cell. If they do all germinate, that's 64 tomato plants. That is a lot of tomato plants. So I normally will plant 4 to 6 tomato plants in my garden because it's just the 2 of us here, but I do also love to give my tomatoes away. But what I do want to mention for you at home is if you're planting tomato plants in your garden and you're just trying to do the math for how many plants you'll need, it's normally 1 to 2 plants per person, and unless you're going to, that's for fresh eating, unless you're going to do some canning and preserving, then you'll want double that. So 3 to 4 per person if you're going to do any kind of preserving or canning. So we do have a lot of tomatoes here to give away. So now that they're all tucked in, we're going to move to the next step, which we are going to give them another little drink here. So you can either use your watering can or your mister, and then you're just going to lightly water all your babies here. So if you're using something different than these cell tray setups here with the tray underneath, just make sure that you do have that tray underneath to hold the water, and it will also help keep them moist because they'll be able to draw up the water from the roots. Okay, so they're all set, and the last step is covering them up. So our seeds are all tucked in and labeled, which is really important. And I'm going to go ahead and put them on my shelf. And we've got the covers on, we have the lights off, and in 7 to 14 days, we are going to see some little seedlings emerging. And at that point, we'll want to turn our lights on, and we'll want to keep the lights about 1 to 2 inches above the seedlings. And that's just so they don't get too leggy. And as they grow, we're going to move the lights up. So there are these nice adjustable chains here. So what I'd like to do is keep you posted on the progress, even if it's just a short little video so you can follow along at home. I really love doing these videos and I cannot wait to get out there and garden. So if you like the video, please tap like and of course subscribe to our channel for some future gardening fun.